Do you want to know the secrets of the Filipino tycoons and what money philosophies are bound to bring you prosperity? Today's special guest Wilson Lee Flores will tell us how they have turned their hunger into power. I'm Edric Mendoza and this is On the Money. Our guest today is Wilson Lee Flores, multi-awarded journalist, historian, poet, entrepreneur, professor, and public speaker as well. Welcome and hello, Wilson.
Yes, Eddie.
Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
You know, it's amazing. I think there's nothing you cannot do.
No.
You seem to be doing everything, huh?
Trying to be a jack of all trades.
Right.
Just kidding.
Right. But it seems that one of your main fascinations is looking at the story of tycoons and their practices.
Especially self-made entrepreneurs.
Especially self-made entrepreneurs.
Yes.
So, since you've been writing about that, you wrote recently about George T.
Yes.
And you wrote things like he wears 20-year-old suits.
Yes.
But he owns 4 Rolls-Royce limousines and rides a Lexus. Can you tell me more about the man and what you discovered about him?
I discovered something about Mr. George T. and other tycoons like him. Many of the people in the world, we only look at successful and wealthy businessmen. We only are fascinated about their wealth, about their resources, even their lifestyles. But ako, I am fascinated and I study what makes them tick, what motivates them, what are the driving forces behind their success. And I noticed one thing in common with many tycoons in the world and in the Philippines. Many of them have gone through some hardships, personal, financial, family, or anything. So, and one thing I could not forget, George T. told me sa Metro Bank, he interviewed him for Philippine Star. He said, everybody in the world, everyone who wants to be a success should be willing to pay the price, whether it's in terms of hard work, discipline. One thing I noticed about him, he is extraordinarily disciplined. His discipline is not only work discipline, not only thinking discipline, mental, even the physical part. He
Keeps
swims,
himself fit like
yes,
that?
he swims every day, half hour.
Wow.
Not leisurely swimming, like a really athletic type swim.
Okay.
Every day, ever since he was in his 20s.
Really?
He's now almost 80.
Who would you say are the people you most admire and maybe interesting facts like you said that people can learn from? Yeah.
Many, like si Mr. Gokongwei Jr.
Okay.
is a very fascinating tycoon. He is not only driven, hardworking. One thing I admire about him, he is maybe the most well-read tycoon in the Philippines.
He is, okay.
Yes. Not only, somebody told me about him being the most well-read. He reads a lot. He reads a lot, books, biographies, newspapers. He reads all magazines. He studies nonstop, even though he was a high school dropout.
Interesting.
Because he was poor. Yeah, he became poor.
So he's self-taught. He's almost like he homeschooled.
Yes, like homeschooled.
He kind of taught himself. Very interesting.
I think the mother taught him because they could not afford formal schooling.
Interesting.
And the father died. The businesses were wiped out. Very interesting. And then see Mr.
And for Mr. Gokongwei, that became a reason for his success. All the
I think
information
so.
that he's been able to...
the information and the drive and the hard work. And one thing pa, like, si Andrew Tan of Mega World is very fascinating.
Why?
He's one of the younger tycoons in the Philippines. He is well educated, not from the most famous school in the Philippines, but it's a good, not famous school. He was a yes, he's magna cum laude or cum laude accounting. Wow. And I could not forget what he told me. He used to go to school walking to save on the jeepney fare.
Every day?
Oh, if he was early now, he would save on the jeepney fare and just walk to school and walk home to save on the fare.
Every day, kasi that adds up.
Yes, but when you talk to him, when you meet him, when you shake his hands, akala mo he's a son of a wealthy person. He speaks very well. He's very refined, very parang well-off kid type guy. One thing good about Andrew Tan, I think, he's a very good financial analyst. He knows how to analyze. I think he's an accountant by background, and he's very daring.
Interesting, very daring.
Yes.
Yeah.
One
risk taker like that.
Yes.
Okay.
One entrepreneurial family that is very low-key that I admire very much also, si Andrew and Mercedes Gotianun. The husband and wife, they are very low-key. They're always not in the papers, except their companies are listed, Philinvest and East West Bank. They're very hardworking. They're extremely hardworking.
How so?
I heard they They hold meetings at 6 a.m. in the morning
Wow.
with their executives.
Even up to now.
Yes,
huh?
and they're in their mid-80s or late 80s.
Wow.
And they really work very hard and lead disciplined lives. Si Lucio Tan naman is another tycoon like Manny Villar. Manny Villar and Lucio Tan are really school of hard knocks. Really self-made men, rags to riches.
Maraming dinaanan
Yes,
din, no? Okay.
si Lucio Tan did not finish college also.
Really?
Yes, he went to night school every night, unlike other ordinary middle class and well-off kids. But he compensated also by working very hard and by always reading a lot. He reads a lot, but he reads more of Chinese philosophy,
I see.
Chinese history, and he's very good at Chinese strategies.
Interesting.
which,
So more principles rather than the industries. Yeah, okay.
principles, and also yung mga strategies naman he reads from the Chinese historical accounts. Mga ano yun intrigues, battles, war. So mga war strategies that could be used for all
That he can apply.
business and politics.
Interesting.
Incredible. And then si Manny Villar naman, he is a self-made man from a poor family, but went to one of the best schools in the country, UP, and had a very good business education. So yun, very interesting for
Which
me
helped
also.
propel him.
Yes,
Very interesting.
There are
Like,
many.
Yeah. So these are the guys that you admire, no? And
Yes.
you looked at. You know how they say that for amongst many of the Chinese tycoons, frugality
Yes, you're
is
right.
a very important
You're
trait.
correct.
Tell me about that.
Frugality, I think it's already inculcated
Yeah.
in the Chinese culture na.
Like yun nga, hindi na mag-jeep every
Yes,
day.
yes,
Yung
yes.
examples you gave earlier.
Yes, yes.
Yeah?
And not only that, one of the tycoons that I know, I don't want to mention her name, she said throughout her life she has never bought any expensive designer clothes.
Right.
And she's one of the wealthiest in the country.
Right.
One of the self-made people in the Philippines. And then also, yun, hindi naman frugality to the point of depriving yourself and everything, but they lead simple lives. I remember hearing people tell me, before Lucio Tan became Philippine Airlines boss, he never rides business or first class. He always rides economy class. And I heard now, one time he was on a plane flight to somewhere, and his executives were on first class or business class.
Right.
He was on economy.
Really?
Yes, and it's true. And I think his thinking behind it is you arrive at the same time.
I see. Very interesting.
Very
What is one of the most extreme stories that you can remember when it comes to these tycoons and frugality?
One story I could not forget, Mr. John Gokongwei told me about frugality. Sabi niya, throughout his life daw, when he was young, he always rented a home for 10 or more than a dozen houses. When he had a family already, he kept on renting daw. Mabuti daw the wife never complained that he was a gypsy daw kasi they were moving from one house.
Transcend.
Yes, they were
Wow.
moving.
What a good
And then-
wife, huh? Okay, yeah.
And I told him why, and he told me, a lot of the businessmen in the Philippines now, when you become wealthy, the first thing they do is build a big house or a nice house. Hindi naman wrong yon. Philosophy niya, ang thinking niya is, inunan niya muna factory niya, businesses niya, they build everything muna, and he did not make the house a priority. He observed that in
business was the
Japan.
priority,
Because when he went to Japan in the 50s and 60s, he could not forget now, in Japan daw, the offices and the homes daw of the tycoons or the top executives are small and simple. But the factories in Japan, they were massive.
Massive, I
So he
see.
could not forget that.
I see.
So when he went back to the Philippines, he said he
Put
would
it back.
prioritize building up his factories. Kasi the factories are the cash cow.
They will give you money back.
They will give you
Your
money
house
back.
will not.
Not so much.
Right. Very interesting. Now, I think the key question would now be, is this trait passed on to the next generation?
That's very interesting.
Okay.
Like in the case of Lance Gokongwei and the brother and the sisters, they have all simple lives. But they enjoy life siguro, but it's simple.
It's
I
not
know
extravagant, no?
It's
That's
not
what you're saying.
extravagant.
Okay.
See George T. of Metrobank, I know the children are not extravagant. SM, I don't think they are extravagant. I heard from someone the kids are very disciplined. Yeah.
Okay.
But there's a problem, how to pass it on, how
To
to
the
teach
third
it.
generation,
yes,
right.
second
So-
or third. The problem usually, many tycoons in the world, not in the Philippines only, especially self-made people, when they went through so many hardship,
It strengthened them, right?
not only that, some of them have a wrong idea na they don't want their kids to suffer.
I see.
So they insulate their kids from hardships.
Become sheltered.
They don't want their kids to be struggling like they did before. That's the opposite. That's wrong. So I really believe that many of the self-made tycoons in the world, not only the Philippines, many of them have some form of hardships or struggles behind their success.
That have allowed them to be who
Yes.
they are. This is so interesting. You know, I have so many more questions for you,
Yes,
Wilson.
yes.
But we're going to have to take a break right
Yes,
now
thank you.
and go to our viewer questions. So stay with us. On the Money, we'll be right back. Welcome back to On the Money. Let's check what Salve Duplito has for us in Salve Says.
There are a lot of things we know about Filipino tycoons thanks to prolific writer Wilson Lee Flores. But there is very little we know about him. What drives the country's tycoon biographer, who has picked the brains of the best businessmen in the country, and what money lessons has he learned from them?
Di naman ako very successful in that sense, pero I'm an ordinary businessman pala. But one thing na I learned is that people who have gone through kahit na konting difficulties, whatever, it's always actually an advantage. Kasi it makes you stronger, better as a person. In my personal case, I don't usually write about myself. All my life, natuto ako na you have to work for whatever you want to have. While you are young, don't be afraid of taking risks. And while you are young, don't be afraid to lose money. So I lost money when I was young. It was not very small amount. But ang good thing about when you are young and you take risks, you can always recover. Not only financially, but emotionally, even physically, you still have all the time in the world. Not only from tycoons, even from medium-sized, very successful entrepreneurs and tycoons, they have all common lessons that I learned. One thing is, it doesn't harm people to save. And then number two is to be efficient. One thing I learned from the tycoons, which I should still be learning to do, they're very efficient with their time management. There are three I know that are the best, most efficient, whom I should emulate. I have not yet emulated. One I know is Mr. John Gokongwei Jr. One is Mr. George T. of Metrobank. One is Mr. and Mrs. Andrew Gotianun. They're all in their 80s. Alam mo, they're remarkable. One thing I learned from them that I have not yet done in my life, they never attend any evening parties or any invitations. I think it's a little bit extreme, but they are really disciplined. They don't attend any socials, January to December. They just go home after work, be with their family. The three of them, Mr. John Gokongwei Jr., alam ko, every day, he does the treadmill every day and swims every day. And one thing I learned I have not yet done, he takes a nap every afternoon after lunch. 20-30 minutes nap. Yes, 20 minutes only, 30 minutes. I think it recharges him. And he works Monday to Saturday every day.
How about George T? I know he swims.
He swims every day, 30 minutes. And very disciplined. And he said he never attends any parties and parang di magalit daw ang his friends daw and clients so they won't be offended. He hosts a party in his house once a year. A big party once a year for everyone. I think New Year or something, every year. Most of the self-made tycoons are very risky. I think I learned about the tycoons of the 21st century now and the late 20th century. Many of the Philippine tycoons are smarter than the tycoons 50 years ago, 100 years ago. Many of the wealthy families in the past generations had a problem with succession. They don't know how to pass on wealth and businesses. Usually, second, third generation, they have problems. Many of the big companies before are no longer there. But the good thing about the tycoons now, the Philippine financial system, the economy is more sophisticated.
Filipino billionaires have one thing in common. They were able to turn their hunger into power and massive fortunes. If you're looking for the billionaire DNA that separates tycoons from the rest of us humans, you've got to listen to Wilson.
Still with us is Wilson Lee Flores, multi-awarded journalist and historian, poet, entrepreneur, professor, and public speaker. Of course, with us is Melissa Gecolea with your money questions. Hi, Mel.
Hi, Edric.
Yeah.
Hello, Wilson. So actually, you've told us a lot of stories about other tycoons. Now, what about your own story?
I'm not of that level, but one thing good about my personal experience, I think, I keep telling people, is there's, I personally believe there's nothing as exciting in this world as creating your own, making your own money.
Yes.
It's, some people are complaining, like I've heard of many families, they have family inheritances that are not equal and all that. I remember my mother used to tell me, if you want to create a small fortune, it's by non-stop hard work and frugality.
That's true, but you're doing something good.
Relationships
Yes,
with the
yes.
children and help.
Yes.
Yeah.
And my mother was a widow. But never in my mind did I doubt that I will be okay. I have this belief lang na everyone in this world born to be successful. In my belief lang yon.
Yes.
And in my personal self, I keep saying I will be okay. So you have to have positive thinking yata.
Well, we have some questions from social media. Now, we asked our social media friends and followers which Filipinos they admire the most, and the most common answer we got was Henry C.
Yes.
Why do you think this is?
I think aside from his authentic success story, rags to riches, very inspiring. One thing good about him also, he's into the businesses that are very popular and famous.
Yes.
The brand is so popular, SM and BDO and all that. There's a form of efficiency in the SM operations.
Yeah, there
It's
is.
not high end, it's not low end. It's somewhere in between the quality, but very consistent, clean,
Yes.
orderly. And one thing I learned about him, he's very, I've interviewed him several times before. He's very down to earth and humble. And he's very soft-spoken.
Yes.
Alam mo, there was one time when he opened the Podium Mall, he invited me to dinner. We talked for 5 hours.
Wow.
Conversation. I was embarrassed because I felt I did most of the talking.
He's just quiet and
Yes, yes.
listening, soft-spoken.
Listening.
But I
guy.
keep asking him, and he would give a few answers. But he's very wise and very down to earth and soft-spoken. But one thing I could not forget, he told me, when you look at him now, the way he talks, the way he is, he seems to be very quiet and very, but he told me deep inside him now, he's very driven. He's very
Wow.
competitive.
So he's just low key.
Yes, but he's very competitive. He wants to be number one in anything that he does. He told me. And when he told me that, he was not number one yet in banking. And he's already number one in malls and shopping malls. And he's now even number one in movie houses. And very interesting guy.
I've heard that.
Yes.
I actually heard that he really goes to all his SM department stores and
Yes.
sits there and checks them out and
Yes,
just watches
he
people
told,
go in and out.
and he told
work
me
hard
his
all the
success
time.
is not overnight.
Yes.
It took him more than half a century to build it up. So many of the successes in the world, whether you're an athlete, painter, musician,
Really takes time.
you have to take a lot of years and years to perfect it and be,
Okay.
no get rich quick phenomenon.
That's true. I think that's very
I agree.
difficult.
Yeah, very
Now we have
Character
another
building.
question
Yes.
from Norman who says, who do you think will be among the second generation of
Yes.
tycoons?
Good question.
I could not forget Mr. Gokongwei always telling me, Tan Gokongwei telling me, when he was young now in the 50s, he was from the province of Cebu, he was a self-made entrepreneur, not rich. People were asking that question.
Already?
Who are going to be the next
Next
generation tycoons?
Yes.
And the names they keep naming in the 50s were the sons and daughters of the famous tycoons of the 50s.
Really?
Not them. They were nobodies.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay.
So he keeps on telling me, many of the future leaders of the business community are not necessarily their own children now. If they could
New players
maintain,
like that.
he told me, if they could just maintain their success, he would be very happy now. But he expects now somewhere out there in Divisoria, Aklan, Leyte, somewhere out there, there's
The
a
next
guy there
ones.
struggling, there's another self-made man there who will become like them now. He
So-
believes.
So why
believes.
doesn't he think that the children of those tycoons will continue?
He
will-
believes they
will
are
be
good.
As successful?
Like in his case, he's very
Yes,
proud of his kid.
of
His
course.
son is very good. But the drive now, there's something about the drive of
It's
a
not as
self-made.
strong.
It's still there, but you cannot replicate exactly the circumstances of hardships and difficulties.
Which of the kids of current tycoons do you think will be able to really follow in their father's footsteps?
I think the owners of SM are very amazing.
Yes.
The Sobel children are very good, the ones now running the business. The Philippine and East West Bank children of the Gotianuns are good. Metro Bank and Toyota's, George T's, the kids are very good. Manny Villar's kids are very good. The children of Manny Villar, all Wharton graduates, hardworking.
Okay.
Aboitises are amazing. They're really good. Many of them are okay.
Okay.
They have the best education, and they have the benefit now of all these publicly listed companies that could source capital from everywhere and source the best minds. They could hire the best professionals for many millions.
My gosh, I'd love to pick your brains some more, but we're out of time.
Yes, thank you very much for that.
Anyway, send us your money questions via email or through Facebook and Twitter, and we'll try to answer them in our next episode or on our next Q&A Friday.
Time-tested values, hard work, discipline,
discipline.
Keeping it low-key, you know. Thank you, Wilson.
Thank you.
Mel,
Thank you.
that's our show today. I'm Edric Mendoza. Join us again tomorrow for more talk and tips so you're always right on the money.